It's a really tricky thing, actually, having worked in the system and understanding how we sell, how our partners work, how our delivery works, allowed me then to make the right choices for the system.
Finance plays a critical role around data, whether the data analyst group sits in finance or not. So I'd be curious your thoughts on that.
What I would really recommend every finance leader who's struggling with the finance organization to become real business partners is to actually consider doing that.
Elias is the CEO of Lucanet, a leading global provider of software solutions for CFO offices. With over 850 employees worldwide and nearly 6,000 customers, he leads the company in simplifying the daily tasks of finance teams through intuitive cloud-based technologies. With extensive experience in corporate finance and leadership roles, Elias has a strong track record of driving growth and innovation on a global scale.
These three things are absolutely fundamental for us. Out-of-the-box functionalities, easy-to-use software and easy-to-use customer experience, quick implementation, fast time to value.
What does great FP&A look like?
I think it starts with a very well connection of FP&A within the business or technical connectivity within the application layer.
Without that collaboration, FP&A falls apart. So what's it been like so far being CEO?
It has been an amazing experience, also humbling one to take over the responsibility of customers around the globe.
Make the right decision and then enable the team to implement it.
When I took over the CFO responsibility at Lucanet, what I witnessed is that
a brief message from this week's title sponsor. Being an operator isn't for the faint of heart. It's like building a parachute while free falling. I found my solution in Operators Guild, home to over 1,000 elite high-growth leaders, the special forces of business scaling. With 150 plus events across 25 global chapters, I've found my personal board of directors and instant answers to critical challenges. Ready to join the Navy SEALs of business scaling? Visit operatorsguild.com and tell them the FP&A Guy sent you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to FP&A Tomorrow, where we delve into the world of financial planning and analysis, examining its current state and future's prospects. I'm your host, Paul Barnhurst, aka the FP&A Guy, and I'll be guiding you through the evolving landscape of FP&A. Each week, we're joined by thought leaders, industry experts, and practitioners who share their insights and experiences, helping us navigate today's complexities and tomorrow's uncertainties. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting your journey in FP&A, this show has something for everyone. This week, I'm thrilled to welcome Elias Apel to the show. Elias, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
Yeah, very excited to get to chat with you today, and we get to talk a little bit about Lucanet and FP&A. So let me give a little bit of background for Elias, and then we'll jump into our first questions. Elias has, a vast amount of experience in corporate finance and software solutions. Today, he is serving as the CEO at Lucanet. He oversees the company's global operations and growth. Prior to Lucanet, he founded Argonas Corporate Finance Advisors, where he led M&A and financing transactions. He has a background in financial analysis and business administration, and he's held various key roles such as chairman of the executive board, group CFO, VP of international go-to-market, as well as channel and more. He has a diverse skill set expertise that have helped contribute to his success in leading and growing companies in the finance and technology sectors. And so again, thrilled to have you. The first question we like to ask everybody, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say. What does great FP&A look like? If you had to describe great FP&A, what would that be?
That's a good one. It's a good starting question. I would say, and of course, I'm a bit biased with how I would consider it or how would I describe it, right? I think it starts with most definitely a very well connection of FP&A within the business or across all the different functions, and also technical connectivity within the application layer to all the relevant system to collect data from. It then continues with seamless integration, which means from my personal experience and also from what I witnessed here at Lucanet, but also with most of our customers, making sure that your operational assumptions that you make flow through to your P&L, balance sheet, cash flow. It then continues with an intuitive user experience. When I speak about intuitive user experience, I mean by that offering a possibility so that others, non-financial users, non-finance people can contribute to a great plan. And that is enabled and empowered by easy and intuitive usage. And then also strong cross-functional, cross-departmental collaboration, aligning financial goals with business strategies.
Yeah, I love that part about, aligning the strategy and business goals. And obviously being able to access all your data, it helps a lot with FP&A. If you can't easily use your data, it creates a lot of challenges. But can you share maybe an example where you've seen great FP&A that has helped you as a business leader, where, either an insight or something where you're like, wow, that was really beneficial?
I remember like roughly 5 years ago when Lucanet embarked on the whole SaaS and cloud transformation. I mean, we've done that, we've sold SaaS and cloud before, but when we really went all in on cloud and SaaS, we started to actually simulate how Lucanet would look like as a SaaS company. And we wanted to accelerate and make sure that we make the right choices. And we want to understand the impact and also not only from a business point of view, but also from a financial profile point of view of the SaaS and cloud transformation. And that was something we started to simulate. And that was a fantastic experience because we could bring together all the different functions, whether it was our product teams or the onboarding, cloud onboarding teams, but also sales and customer success, and make sure that we reflect in that simulation all the different aspects of how a customer journey could look like in a SaaS context, and simulating that, and then also wrapping your head around how do very smart and customer-centric bundling and pricing could look like to increase value for the customer, but also make sure that we can have a healthy also profile as Lucanet, was a very interesting exercise. And I remember back then how impressed I was by that collaboration, cross-functional, cross-departmental collaboration that took place at Lucanet.
Yeah, that's obviously a big project whenever you make that total switch of your business model, everything going to SaaS, subscription. All right. I think it's something pretty much every tech company's now gone through, or most of them have, but it's quite a journey. And so that's great. You saw that collaboration and that real working together, because without that collaboration, FP&A falls apart.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
I'd love to know, before joining Lucanet, you spent nearly 7 years at Argonas Corporate Finance Advisors. How did you come and start that business? Maybe talk a little bit about that experience.
I mean, I've been always very, very passionate about finance. And I started my professional career in corporate finance advisory, mergers and acquisition, debt financing. And I decided back in 2010, 2011, to carve out of the previous company I was working for with a group of colleagues. And we founded Argonas Corporate Finance because we figured that there's a way, or there's an opportunity to position us very industry agnostic, but with a very clear focus on highly complex transaction structures. So back then we saw our kind of competitive edge in offering M&A expertise alongside financing expertise, but also advising customers in a very long term throughout multiple transactions and events, transformational events. And we were able to establish really long-term customer relationships back then with, for example, automotive suppliers, machinery suppliers, but also real estate companies, also tech businesses, and advise them over very long period of time in all these aspects of M&A financing, etc. And actually through that role and through that responsibility back then, and the trust of my customers, I was also able to implement Lucanet back then for the very first time for those customers. And I saw firsthand the massive impact and the value that was created by that solution. So that was my first touch point also with Lucanet back then.
Great. No, thank you for sharing. And I'm curious, was there maybe a favorite transaction you worked on or experience from those 7 years that you could share? Like, is there one that really kind of stands out as you look back?
I think that it's really hard to pick out a single one, but I must say that I really enjoyed the long-term collaboration with those customers. So I wasn't a big fan. That was also one of the reasons, by the way, why I moved away from M&A at some point, because I was always sad about actually leaving a situation and after, let's say, closing a transaction and then let the business handle with the rest, so to say, and me taking on the next challenge. So I really enjoyed working with customers over multiple years and really become part of that journey and also witness how that business evolves. For example, by acquiring another business, integrating that business, then doing a refinancing, again, expanding, investing in growth, doing maybe another acquisition, or also sometimes maybe carving out a non-core business. So that is the kind of what I really enjoyed. And this is luckily also what I can now witness firsthand at Lucanet, or was able to witness firsthand at Lucanet over the last couple of years, and even beyond, right? To stay on board and witness how things are evolving over time. That was kind of what I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, it sounds like you always wanted to be there for the long term to see
Exactly.
things and see those changes and how they impact versus, the typical consulting or transaction business. You get in, you do
Exactly.
your work, you wave to them on your way out, and you go to your next job, so to speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's great that you had that opportunity to be more of that long term and build those relationships. How has that helped you as CEO, kind of, advising those clients and building those long term relationships? How have you brought that with you to Lucanet?
I mean, my customers back then were always in some state of transformation. And I witnessed that those customers who had a very clear, let's say, target state in mind and executed in that direction were the most successful ones. The ones that acted too opportunistically and also pivoted back and forth were the ones struggling. And that is something that at Lucanet plays a very important role. We have a very, very clear target in mind. We have a very well articulated long-term strategy that we are executing on. And especially in the buy and build strategy, you never actually know what's going to happen and whether you will be successful finding exactly what you need, for example, in terms of targets, but also in terms of the markets that you're exploring and then potentially entering. So it's a really interesting journey. It's a dynamic journey, but if you have a clear target in mind and very well articulated long-term goals, it really helps you to keep track, and also ultimately I strongly believe that you will be more successful.
I really like you said the long term goal and executing toward that. We've seen something where companies just pivot, all opportunistic, and you're gonna have a wrong opportunity, and things aren't gonna look so good when that happens. So I think there's some real value in having that long term vision, ability to execute, and obviously small pivots and changes always have to happen, but
Of course. Yeah.
having that clear strategy, I've seen it in my career, so I appreciate that. So you've been CEO of Lucanet, I think it's for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Right? So what's it been like so far being CEO? I know you were group CFO and had several other roles in the company. So has it been what you expected? Maybe just talk a little bit about the experience so far.
I mean, it has been an amazing experience, also a humbling one to take care of, or to take over the responsibility of now around 900 employees worldwide, 6,000 customers around the globe. And I would say that the most challenging one for me was definitely getting into that mode, that CEO mode, as I climbed the ranks over the years. And I really like to get to be operationally involved. But this is something that had to change, right, over time. So you're not really working in the system anymore. You're more working at the system. And being Lucanet CFO back before transitioning into the CEO role also helped me to understand how this looks like, right? How you can actually take a step back out of the business and then really work at the system. And what also helped a lot was working shoulder to shoulder with my predecessor, Dominic, who, by the way, was also the person who hired me in the first place. So that was a very good collaboration and really helped me also to transition over all these years.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I can see going from working in the day-to-day operations to more working on the business and the higher level strategy would probably be a really hard transition.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure there are days you're like, I want to go work on the operations.
I mean, you have a reflex, right? If you've been working in the system for a very long time, you know the business, maybe not inside out, but you know it well enough so that it feels like, damn it, I actually know the solution and I know where to find the answer, and then I could execute on that. But this reflex is something that you really have to hold back, because there are others who are domain experts in their function. And these are the ones that you want to rely on. So long story short, I like getting into the detail, but only to make the right decisions. I'm not trying it to take over operational responsibilities, not at all, but just to make the right choices, make the right decisions, because these questions come my way, and then I want to make the right decision at the very end. Yeah.
Yeah, great point. Make the right decision and then enable the team to implement it. Let them be successful. I think it's one of the hardest lessons we all learn is first time you're a manager. Like, they did it this way and I want it this way, or I would, make this change. I struggled with that a lot. And I'm like, I can still remember the project where I had to be like, all right, as long as you get it done, I don't care how you do it, because they clearly didn't want to do it my way. As long as you meet the needs of the business partner, this is an area, doesn't matter. I'll call uncle and, take my hands off it and let you do it. And it was a great employee I hired. I'm really glad I did that versus micromanage it, because it's easy to do, but I like it this way.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. That's a very difficult transition.
See,
Sure.
that's why I
I
run
have
my
to
own
say.
business now, because I can just do it however I want and don't care what anyone says. So I'm curious. You started out Lucanet in sales, right? And you had a role of head of channel sales, development, and then you moved to become CFO. How did that kind of happen that you came in from sales? Because you've done a lot of advisory,
Yeah.
ran your own business. That's not a usual career path, right? That's not the typical stepping stones you see. So how did that kind of come about?
That's pretty exotic, I would say. It's fair to point that out. But for me personally, it really didn't really felt like this. I mean, when you're starting a consulting firm or a professional service company like the company I co-founded previous to joining Lucanet, you're always in a sales role as well, right? You
Yep.
need to acquire new projects. You need to speak to players in the market, banks and investors, etc., etc. You're always in a sales mode anyway. So I've felt very confident in that sales responsibility on that sales mode even before joining Lucanet. And then during my time in channel and leading our international go-to-market teams, I became also I was very closely involved in articulating the strategic and also commercial direction of Lucanet, including our cloud transition, which was absolutely crucial to transition then again into the CFO role, because then I became the commercial CFO that also Lucanet needed, that can translate from the commercial operations to finance, what is happening, how can we finance that, how can we measure certain things. And we also, by the way, I also then established, for example, data analytics as a function within Lucanet that didn't exist before in the finance function, so that we could bridge, so to say, operations and financing as well. And I started to develop Lucanet's finance organization to really become a business partner across our organization. So I would say that having worked in the system and understanding how we sell, how our partners work, how our delivery works, allowed me then to make the right choices for the system.
And now a message from our title sponsor. Being an operator is not for the faint of heart. It often feels like you're jumping out of an airplane and building the parachute on the way down. CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and FP&A leaders can relate. That is why I joined Operators Guild. It's home to more than 1,000 of the most elite high-growth operators in the world. Think the special forces for business scaling. Members have access to over 150 in-person events across all 25 global chapters. The modern startup founder, CFO, and COO are really just multidisciplinary problem solvers, which is why having the best problem solvers together has created the ultimate diversity intelligence of any operator group in the world. Operators Guild gave me the chance to meet my own personal board of directors, people I can bounce ideas off, and their online forum allows you to get answers from your peers as questions pop up. Like, how do I run an employee secondary? Or what should I pay as a base commission rate on SaaS deals? I've made great friends through attending the highly acclaimed OG Summit. Join Operators Guild and access the Navy SEALs of high growth business scaling, a group by operators for operators. Learn more and apply at operators-guild.com. That's operators-guild.com and tell them the FP&A guy sent you. I like that. I like the systems thinking, and makes a lot of sense. The sales role, the finance allowed you to see both those sides. And the more you know about a business, the more you've been in different roles, the easier it is to understand and make sure you're making good decisions, right? The less you know about a business, the easier it is to have a blind spot. Doesn't mean you have to know everything,
Exactly.
like you said, and be in all the weeds. But a broad experience is really helpful. Like, I could guarantee if I went back into an FP&A role tomorrow, I would be better for having run my own business for 3 years, having to do sales and marketing and all the things I do today and talking to all these people. I'm like, I would know more and make different decisions than I did before. So I can see where that's really helpful. And I would imagine both the sales and the finance has been incredibly helpful as a CEO.
Yeah. I still love doing sales. I mean, I liked it also during my time as CFO, right? Yesterday, I was able to meet a CFO, one of our existing customers, and understand the struggles that they have and also the difficulties they're facing in their business transformation, which has nothing to do with Lucanet in the first place, but then translating those business requirements again into how can we address that potentially with expanding with Lucanet and using more of the Lucanet solution platform to become more effective and automate processes, etc. That's a very interesting conversation. And so I love to get into that mode, and I might not close the deal immediately, but at least I'm getting an understanding what our go-to-market teams are facing every day in their conversations. So I really enjoy that. And staying in touch with the customers for me is absolutely crucial and one of the top priorities that I have.
No, that's fabulous. I think that's great that you have that. I think, any CEO, you have to be in touch with the customers. I think even as a CFO, it's great if you get out and meet the customers. It's just anytime you can start to understand and see what the customer's going through, you make better decisions.
100%, yeah.
And so you mentioned something. I want to go back just a little bit because I think this is interesting. You mentioned when you were CFO, you created a data analytics group and put it under finance. And I've asked this question before. Obviously there's different opinions. Are you of the belief that typically in companies today, it makes sense to have, data analytics in the finance group or somewhere else in the business? Or how do you think about that? Because there's been a lot of debate, and finance plays a critical role around data, whether the data analyst group sits in finance or not. So I'd be curious your thoughts on that piece.
I think there's not this one way, so to say, that single truth, right? I think what I witnessed when I took over the CFO responsibility at Lucanet, what I witnessed is that all the functions started to build up somehow data analytics responsibilities within their team. The problem we faced back then was that the systems we used were still pretty siloed. So we just started around that time to implement, for example, Salesforce as a global CRM tool. Previous to that, we had also a more disconnected CRM architecture. And then following Salesforce, we had HubSpot for marketing automation, etc. So long story short, the point I'm trying to make is we came from a world where every function had its own tool, and then started to create dashboards or measure KPIs and also report on them. But for me, what was really missing was that end-to-end visibility throughout the whole customer journey. And that is where when I decide, okay, before we now start to build these silos from an analytical point of view and also from a reporting point of view, I rather centralize it. So I took these talented individuals that were already within our organization and were, for example, already working in the people organization or in the marketing organization, and I tried to bring them all together and then hire even more to make sure that for every function there is a business partner, a data business partner, so to say. And this is how I established data analytics or data as a function at Lucanet. And from that point onwards, we were really able to report end to end throughout all the different solutions we were using and have a more unified, more holistic view on the business. So it might be a very Lucanet specific situation, because I've also seen other customers who are very successful, and also other software companies very successful in decentralizing these responsibilities throughout the organization. But again, I think for us it was the right choice. But I don't know whether we will always stay like this. I think the more mature our organization becomes, and the more mature also our enterprise application architecture becomes, we will be more connected. It will be all end to end. So it won't maybe make such a big difference anymore where the actual data person sits. But at the moment, we are still sticking to that setup, and we're very happy with that.
I'm glad it's working well. And I think, like you said, there's no one right solution. I think for me, the big thing I've seen is anytime finance or as an organization is making sure they're heavily involved in data, that's beneficial. But, as far as how you have it set up, there's lots of different paths that can be successful depending on your needs. It's that focus and having that end-to-end understanding so you don't have silos in data that's important. Yeah. We've all been there. How many have been in a meeting where 5 different numbers come up for what your CAC is? And you're like, okay, how'd you calculate it? And the whole meeting turns out into, well, how did you come up with that number instead of being beneficial of, the point of the meeting?
But Paul, what I would really recommend every finance leader who's struggling with the finance organization to become real business partners is to actually consider doing this. Because by embedding data analytics or data as a function in the finance team, you kind of boost that holistic visibility on how the business works and how effective the business is throughout different functions. So that is creating so much visibility and so much transparency in the finance function that the team also is being educated on what to consider as a business partner and what to focus on as well. So I think it's a very good starting point if a finance function wants to step up as a more holistic business partner.
I totally agree. And, I had a guest one time comment that he's like, and he'd work small companies, like, but you could tell if you have a more modern CFO by how they think about data. And often they'll bring data under finance's purview. Not always, but they're going to be intimately involved, which I think that is what you're getting at is key. You have to, with how important data is today to be successful as a CFO, you have to be intimately involved in data. Do you have to own it? No, there's different structures that can work, but you really need to make sure you understand and that it's aligned with the company, that you're really digging into it there.
Yeah.
So I want to ask a question. I watched a video that you guys did where and in the video you were talking about kind of Lucanet, I think a little bit of unveiling a new logo. And one of the things you mentioned that stuck out to me, you mentioned nothing is evolving faster than the role of the CFO office, in companies. So maybe talk a little bit about that. What did you mean when you say that? Why do you think that?
The transition of the office of the CFO and the CFO role is nothing new. And I could imagine that CFOs who listen to all these opinions these days probably starting to get annoyed around the buzz that is being made about their roles constantly changing. I would say that this transition started probably in the early 2000s when technological advancements really flooded the finance functions, and businesses had to understand that the processes they relied on and the systems and tools that they were using, if they were using any, but also, for example, the business models that they were pursuing will not be the ones that they can rely on for the future. So it was kind of a disruptive moment, I'd say, like 20, 25 years ago, where lots of finance organizations had to really step up and think about, okay, what is that impact for my responsibility, for my space of responsibility? Since then, the technological advancement started to accelerate. And that's what I mean with becoming or changing even faster, that the CFO is continuously under pressure to innovate and automate. Probably the first one to adopt the new stuff that is coming up, and the new functionalities that are being offered, and cloud solutions that are popping up, and while still providing strategic leadership, not only for the finance function itself, but also beyond the finance function. So now with AI, we are again entering an era where CFO are expected to leverage that first. So I always get the impression that everyone is looking at the CFO, at the finance function, but you guys, you should actually start using it and to automate, create better insights, accelerate decision making, and also level up the productivity throughout the business. So that's what I meant with accelerating, that this technical transition is becoming faster and faster, and it's really at Lucanet, we really are in the midst of all this in our own organization, but it's also our product as we are shipping, or as we've also started last year to ship our first AI functionalities on our platform. So it's exciting. Those are exciting times, but also challenging times.
Makes a lot of sense. The technical changes that are happening, acceleration, put a lot of stress on the office of the CFO, on finance, and one approving all the different departments that want these different products and figuring it out themselves and all that goes with that whole transition. So I'm curious, you mentioned AI, so I can put AI in your products. How does Lucanet think about AI? How are you thinking about that journey? As I think everybody's trying to figure out the different use cases and how they do it. So how do you think about it maybe as a company and for your customers?
Yeah. So for us, AI is not there are two perspectives, right? The one is, what are we doing in our product offering? And the other one is the other side is what we're doing internally. Maybe I start with what we're doing internally. We've been one of the, I would say, early adopters of AI throughout our organization, especially in R&D. We started very early, for example, to roll out GitHub Copilot throughout our R&D organization. And today, there's already more than 10%, or around 10% at the moment, of our code is being generated by AI already. So we're really trying to stay, so to say, and always cutting edge when it comes to applying the newest functionalities there. Then we are also thinking about, we thought about, okay, let's roll out Microsoft Copilot throughout the organization to really, first and foremost, create an attention or an awareness for the value that can be created throughout any function. And the outcome is really impressive. And of course, it's heterogeneous as well. So there are some teams who are starting very fast to adopt it and really accelerate, increase productivity. Others take a little bit longer, but that's okay. It will take time, but I'm pretty sure that in a year's time, we will have a massive adoption within our organization. And I can't imagine a single individual within our group to not work with AI on a daily basis. On the product side, we really believe that AI is not a product, but it's a functionality. It's a feature. It's something that the customer sometimes doesn't even realize that it's happening or that AI is involved. And we've shipped last year a series of different AI functionalities across our platform solutions. And we started, for example, with something that might not be the easiest use case to explain, but let me try to explain it a bit. So I don't know whether you're familiar with XBRL, the XBRL format. XBRL is a format to make reports machine readable. So when we talk about efficiencies and reducing bureaucracy, so to say, we are creating reports that, for example, a regulator can read out and audit 100% automatically. So by doing so, we allow customers to become compliant with their reports, whether it's under ESEF regulation or ESG or tax, and create report that for the regulator, again, is machine readable and easy to digest and to audit. We've reduced, in the past, these tags were done manually. So for an average report of, 100 to 300 pages, it was probably around 1, 2, 3 days of manual work to tag the process. We are now down to minutes when we do it with AI, but it's running in the background. So there's no real, let's say, manual interaction with the AI. It's just happening like this, right? The second thing that we've done is we've launched a Copilot on our platform, which allows, for example, CFOs who are not daily users of our platform to simply query the database and ask for information such as, how did my gross margin develop over the last 3 years for this very specific product? And if this data is available, it creates an answer, it creates a table, it gives you all the insights that you need, whether you're sitting on a train or maybe in a board meeting or so. So having this easy accessibility of the data that is already being stored in Lucanet is a big big new value creating functionality on our platform. So again, I could continue like this because there's so many
Sure.
things that we are planning, but that gives you an idea of how we are thinking and what we are planning to do as well.
FP&A Guy here. Today, I'm super excited to talk to you about the FP&A Hub community, the online community that you can go to get answers. Early in my career, I wish I had a place I could have went to where I didn't have to talk to somebody in the company, go to my boss again, or Google, that I knew I could get answers from. That's what you can get at the FP&A Hub. You can make friends, you can learn from others, you can attend events, put discussions and posts out there. You don't have to worry about all the selling and cheat sheets and stuff you get on LinkedIn. This is real conversations by real FP&A professionals. We have over 1,100 people in the community, and it's absolutely free. That's the best thing. So please go ahead and join today, the FPAHub.com. You can join for free at the FPAHub.com. And the FP&A Guy looks forward to seeing you in this free community. Join today. Thank you. Appreciate that. Exciting. I love the example of the reporting and saving hours where people don't even realize it's AI. There are areas where, as you said, it can just run in the background and it's there to make our lives easier. And then all mentioning every employee should be using it. I mean, that's the key is it's humans with AI. And then there are also areas where it's just AI in the background, and that combination can make us a lot more efficient. So I want to shift gears here just a little bit. During your time at Lucanet, you've been involved in several acquisitions. I know you came from kind of an M&A background. What's been the reasoning behind expanding your product offering through acquisitions? What's been kind of the focus there?
Maybe also here is that we probably provided the best solution in that space or in that category, but we were also not offering anything beyond that. So first we started with some carefully selected partnerships to add additional solutions to our offering, and then kind of become a reseller, distributor for those products, and also introduce our customers to those products and then bundle them with our solution. We realized quite fast that this works very well, and that our go-to-market motion and our credibility in finance, our global customer access, and our unique value proposition allowed us to become a platform for buy and build. Our core values, I think I mentioned that in the previous conversations that we had probably a few times, are out-of-the-box software, out-of-the-box functionalities, easy-to-use software in easy-to-use customer experience, and very fast time to value. So quick implementation, fast time to value. These three things are absolutely fundamental for us. And believe me, it's a really tricky thing actually to do buy and build while you're trying to stay true to these core values. The thing is that if you would just expand into spaces because your competition is doing it, you won't succeed. I'm pretty sure about that. Your customers, they must want you to win. And they will only do so if you found out a way to do things better. So you have to have a real right to win, to expand beyond what made you successful in the past. And we knew that if we would identify businesses that would add additional business critical finance solutions to our existing offering, we call them jobs to be done in the office of the CFO, and match these core values that I mentioned, out of the box, easy to use, fast time to value, with that combination, we would become a office of the CFO powerhouse for the mid-market. And our customers and partners, they really backed us up. And I also experienced being the CFO, being the buyer's persona, and so to say, the ambassador within our organization, that we could, as a customer, also benefit from the solutions that we were using ourselves. So long story short, we found or very carefully selected M&A targets now, thinking it backwards from the customer requirements, and of course remaining laser focused on the office of the CFO. But we also, just have to mention that, also added organic growth on top of that. So we delivered also self-developed solutions with a clear right to win besides the acquisitions that we did.
Sure. Yeah. The combination of both the build
Exactly.
and the buy. So one of those acquisitions you did, if I can speak this morning, one of the acquisitions you did late last year was Causal, right? An
Yeah.
FP&A planning platform. So I'm curious, why Causal? Let's start there. What made you decide to select them as your tool that you wanted in your platform?
Yeah. So we started, I mean, the fact that we wanted to add that we wanted to think about how can we add operational planning, strategic planning, experience, however you want to call it, to our platform is not a new thing. It's something that that was discussed within Lucanet for decades already, right? And in the past, like 15, 20 years ago, we started doing the first partnerships, but we always realized the values that we represented were not echoed by the partner solutions, so to say, that we try to offer our customers. So it didn't felt like a natural thing for our customers to say, okay, let's take that planning solution on top of Lucanet and then have that holistic, or let's say unified solution in place. So we started like 2, 3 years ago, a very well structured process. And the individual who's also working closely with me, Gabriel, here on that, and we screened more than 60 different businesses around the globe because we were willing to not to do no deal rather than any deal. I hope you understand where I'm coming from, right?
Yes.
We said that if we won't find that one solution that perfectly matches our value proposition and that then will translate into a right to win into that space globally, we rather don't do it and focus on the things that we are offering, that we were already offering on the platform. So when we met Tamo and Lucas, the founder of Causal, for the very first time, and we saw their product, we knew that it's a fit right away, especially because of everything we saw previous to Causal, and we kind of discovered our core values within their solution. So with Causal, we bought not only best in class technology, we bought third generation cloud native excellence, and we were able to check all these value boxes. And as we speak now, the platform integration is in progress. I've seen it already last week or no, the week before in our internal launch event, and we will go live for our customers early March, which is actually next week, next 2 weeks, with XP&A, which is then Causal on the Lucanet cloud platform. And I'm really proud of the team. They've done a fantastic job, and it's really impressive how they delivered on that vision in record time.
Yeah, no, that's great. I appreciate you sharing and, trying to something that really aligns with your out of box, quick implementation. FP&A software obviously has an implementation cycle, and it can vary from a few weeks to a really long time, depending on the software and needs
Exactly.
and challenges. So I could see where, reviewing 60 tools to find that one that makes sense. It kind of leads to another question. Causal, especially at the time you bought him, had really focused on a product growth-led strategy. It had a lot of smaller customers on the platform. So,
Yeah.
how are you ensuring that the platform can handle, whether from a calculation or collaboration, the needs of your mid-market customers? Because that's, where you're at is a little more upscale than where they were at. So how has that been a concern, or how are you thinking about that?
No, that has never been a real concern. Our search focused first and foremost on the right technology and the right solution, not whether or not there is a customer base already in place or anything like that. We really focused on that value proposition, that second to none value proposition that we wanted to add for all our customers. And Lucanet has historically always been fully agnostic when it came not only to industries, but also to, let's say, growth stages or maturity of an organization. We already started decades ago to serve fast growing scale ups and delivered our consolidation and financial planning solution to them. And they have become one of our biggest customers these days, right? They became stock listed global champions in their space, whether it is, for example, I don't know, delivery or e-commerce or whatever, food delivery, for example. So long story short, we were used to partner with startups and scale-ups and then become their partner of choice over decades to serve their needs. They're also changing needs. And that's why we felt very comfortable actually seeing that Causal had also been able to deliver to these early stage customers very successfully, but Causal also delivered very successfully to mid-market customers. So in the past, before where they pivoted more to a PAG, product-led growth approach, they were actually targeting the mid-market. So there is already a proof point there also for mid-market readiness. And during the due diligence process and during the conversations that we had with the team, we were, of course, intensively looking into that. So we brought along not only experts from the space, but also partners, our own partners and our own customers. And maybe a very interesting, funny anecdote, during the due diligence, we brought along one very trusted customer actually that was able to see the product and also test it around. And the CFO reached out to me and said, guys, I know it's highly confidential. I can't do anything at the moment, but would you be mad if I would order it right now? Like, I'm just about to create my budget for next year. And that's exactly what I was looking for over the last years. So would you bother if I just order it right now? So we already had the first mid-market customer win, so to say, during the whole process. And I think that underpins also why we are so confident that this is a solution that our customers are looking for. And right now we are in the midst of go-to-market preparation, and our partners are already onboarded. And the echo that we get and the feedback that we get is absolutely amazing. But we also know that we are not done yet. So we have to work on a couple of items that we already identified during the due diligence process and during the acquisition, which is, for example, level up the high performance calculation engine, which is already being delivered in March, basically next month. The data integration with our consolidation and financial planning solution, that the operational assumptions really flow through to your cash flow fully automatically. We have other enhancements planned on the roadmap, including workflow functionalities, multi-currency, flexible interest, flexible rates, unbalanced hierarchies to enable more seamless imports from CFP, our consolidation and planning solution. So we're not stopping there. There's more to come and more to expect.
Exciting. No, that's great. And it's always good to get the proof from the customer. That's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that one, right? That's what everybody wants before the deal's closed. Hey, can I go buy this? It's kind of like, well, yeah, we'll figure that out.
By the way, that's something we've done with all the add-ons that we already saw a certain traction or interest previous to the actual acquisition. So that was with Amana when we started in disclosure management or tax compliance. There was already a certain overlap with our customer base, also in banking and cash management, and now with FP&A. So we see this is kind of something that we must witness, otherwise, or we must see along the way. Otherwise, we would not be confident enough to do such an acquisition.
That makes a lot of sense. So we're going to move into, this is kind of a standard section where we ask some general questions about FP&A of all our guests.
Yeah.
So the first one here, if you had to pick one, what is the number one technical skill that FP&A professionals need that they should master?
I would say, and we actually discussed that earlier, I think proficiency in data analytics, because that's absolutely crucial in informed decision-making and moving throughout the different business functions of a business. Yeah.
We definitely get that answer, as one of them. And it's so important to understand data and analytics.
Yeah.
I understand that one. What about on the soft side, that kind of softer human skill, that non-technical skill that we need?
I think, again, coming from that high level, that necessity of high level of cross-functional work, I think effective communication is absolutely essential.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be able to communicate if you're going to be a business partner.
100%.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then if there is one thing that you would like to see FP&A focus more on there, or that you think FP&A can get better at in general from your experience, what is that?
I think I would start with saying predictive analytics and scenario planning. That's an important thing. That's an important topic. That's something I would love to actually do more and see more. And we've been quite early in the market with the predictive analytics solution already 5 years ago. But we realized back then that the market wasn't ready yet. So I think that right now it's really starting to become more and more mature. And I'd really like to see that being embraced more intensively by the FP&A function. Secondly, becoming more commercial is, I think, a very important is something I would like to see more. I would also expect that as a CFO from my organization, and to anticipate market changes faster and earlier, especially in those times right now where things are moving pretty fast and sometimes unpredictable, but being able to anticipate that, simulate the impact, and thus becoming again the business partner for your organization is absolutely crucial. So that, I would say, these are the top things.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Those are all really good ones. So now we're going to move into a get to know you section where I get to ask a little more kind of personal questions so our audience gets to know you a little bit. What do you like to do in your spare time? Do you have a favorite hobby or passion when you're not working on Lucanet?
I started to cycle to build up a passion for cycling during COVID. But more generally, I really love being active and enjoying the nature, especially with my 2 kids.
Yeah, always fun to get out with the kids. I have a daughter and I love to go hiking when I can get her to go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I live here in Munich, in beautiful Bavaria, so it's pretty close to the nature. We can go to the mountains. There are many lakes, so I really enjoy that if I have the time to go.
Great. Yeah, it's probably finding the time to get out sometimes a big challenge. Yes, I live right next to the mountains, and sometimes I'm like, wait, I don't get out there enough. So I get it. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? What did you think you'd be doing when you were younger,
I think,
when you were a child?
if I remember correctly, I think the first thing that comes up to my mind, I don't know what the right expression is in English, but I think it's a jungle explorer or jungle forest explorer.
Kind of
I was always
safari,
fascinating by the jungle. I've never been to the jungle, actually. I've never been to a jungle I mean, I've been to something that looked like a jungle, but it's probably not the type of jungle I imagined when I was a kid. But I always wanted to discover new things, and I was doing it at really small scale in the garden of in my parents' garden like that. But yeah, I think that's really the single most important vision that I had when I thought about my professional future back then, becoming a jungle explorer.
I like it. I hadn't thought of that, but I can now picture it. The hat will get you a whip. You're out in the
I
Amazon.
think it was not so much, Paul, about the outfit back then. It was more about like collecting animals. I really liked also doing that when I was a kid. So just grabbing them and collecting them and then observing how they behave and what they're doing and whether I could feed them or not. So I wasn't shying away from getting in contact with animals at any point in time.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that one. We're going to do one more kind of job related. And this is, so let's say today you could switch jobs with any person in the world for 1 week. Who are you going to switch jobs with?
I would say, I mean, I always like a good challenge, and I'm a big soccer fan, and becoming coach of my hometown soccer team, Sport Club Freiburg, which is in the Black Forest in Germany, would probably be a dream becoming true. I really believe, and my teams know that managing a high-performing SaaS company is pretty similar to a sports team. And with the only difference, and that is the challenge, or that's something I would like to witness, that your actions, your every decision that you make becomes visible immediately or at latest within 90 minutes. And I really love the concept of developing bold, fast-paced, high-impact strategies, also in a business context. And soccer could be a very interesting way to really get challenged whether I have that skill set.
Yeah, exactly. That 90 minutes, you know, when you walk off the pitch, like that decision didn't work or that worked, or what would you do differently? You get quicker feedback than some decisions you make,
Absolutely.
like buying,
Yeah.
buying causal. You're not going to know in 90 seconds
No.
or 90 days if it's, really been successful. It's going to take quite a bit of time. So that's a good example. I like that. So as we wrap up, any last kind of words you want to say about, FP&A, or anything you want to share with your audience that we haven't talked about?
I mean, when I think about this function, the FP&A function, I really think about it. I think that you should always start building trust with your organization. That's absolutely key. And then think the processes really end to end. How does the operating assumption or the assumption that is being made in one part of the business impacting your P&L and then impacting also your cash flow? In many cases, and I've witnessed that so many times during my time as a corporate finance advisor, but also serving businesses here at Lucanet, that many companies learn that too late and understand it too little. And that is something I would really recommend everyone to get to put that on top of the list, so to say. And then also make smart tool choices. Think really and challenge the vendors. I really love being challenged also at Lucanet. And I think it's fair for a prospect to expect to see everything live in the tool. And you will be surprised that only a few can actually do that. And that's why we love what we are doing, because everything, I couldn't imagine of something, if we can't show it in the tool, it probably doesn't work or doesn't exist in Lucanet.
Sure.
Right? So, and that applies, by the way, also to Causal or to the other add-ons we've done, that this is something where we really try to differentiate ourselves. So I would recommend everyone to really expect a lot from a vendor. And then we didn't speak about AI today a little bit. We could speak a lot longer about that topic.
Yes,
but I really recommend everyone in the FP&A space to never stop learning and to connect with peers and experts and go on conferences or whatever is needed to stay on top of the latest developments, because the speed is breathtaking and the impact will be absolutely massive. And we already experience that firsthand at Lucanet every day, both internally and also when speaking to our customers and when shipping our solutions.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that advice, and I really enjoyed chatting with you today. It's been a lot of fun. We'll make sure to put the website for Lucanet, your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out, they can. But thank you for carving out some time today and chatting with me. I really enjoyed it, Elias.
Thank you, Paul. I enjoyed it too, and it was fun to be on your show, on your podcast. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks for listening to FP&A Tomorrow. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review on your podcast platform of choice. This allows us to continue to bring you great guests from around the globe. As a reminder, you can earn CPE credit by going to earmarkcpe.com, downloading the app, taking a short quiz, and getting your CPE certificate. To earn continuing education credits for the FPAC certification, take the quiz on Earmark and contact me, the show host, for further details.